The silent storm. Emma Hartwell adjusted her simple cardigan as she stepped into the gleaming marble lobby of Pierce Technologies. The towering glass building seemed to stretch endlessly upward, its modern architecture making her feel like a small bird that had accidentally flown into a cathedral. She clutched her worn leather satchel closer, feeling completely out of place among the sleek surfaces and expensive artwork. She was only here because her friend Rebecca worked in accounting and had invited her to the company's annual charity auction. Emma rarely attended such events, preferring the quiet comfort of the city library where she worked as a children's librarian. But Rebecca had been persistent, arguing that Emma needed to get out more and meet new people. The lobby buzzed with well-dressed guests sipping champagne and examining silent auction items displayed on elegant tables. Emma recognized several faces from business magazines and local news, their confident laughter echoing off the polished floors. She felt invisible in her simple navy dress and comfortable flats, which was exactly how she preferred it. As she made her way toward the auction tables, a sudden commotion near the elevator bank caught her attention. People were backing away from something, their animated conversations dropping to uncomfortable whispers. Emma followed their concerned gazes and saw a small boy sitting on the floor, his knees drawn up to his chest, rocking back and forth. The child appeared to be around 8 years old, dressed in an expensive little suit that now looked rumpled. His dark hair fell across his face as he continued rocking, his breathing rapid and shallow. Emma recognized the signs immediately from her years working with children at the library. He was having what many people called a meltdown, but Emma knew it was really a moment of complete overwhelm. Several adults stood nearby, clearly unsure how to help. A security guard spoke quietly into his radio while a woman in a business suit gestured helplessly. No one seemed to know what to do, and their hovering presence was likely making things worse for the distressed child. Emma didn't hesitate. She set down her satchel and slowly approached the boy, careful not to make any sudden movements. Instead of speaking or trying to touch him, she simply sat down on the marble floor about 3 feet away. She reached into her satchel and pulled out a small square of colorful paper, something she always carried for the children at the library. With gentle, deliberate movements, Emma began folding the paper into an origami crane. Her fingers worked quietly, creating crisp folds while maintaining a calm, peaceful presence. She didn't look directly at the boy or speak to him, understanding that direct interaction might feel overwhelming right now. Instead, she focused on her paper folding, creating a safe, non-threatening space nearby. The boy's rocking gradually slowed as he became aware of the quiet activity beside him. His breathing began to settle as he watched Emma's hands work with the paper. She finished the first crane and set it gently on the floor between them, then reached for another piece of paper to begin a second one. 25 floors above, Jackson Pierce stood in his executive office, his hands pressed against the floor-to-ceiling windows as he stared down at the city below. He had been preparing to join the charity auction when his assistant burst in with news that made his blood run cold. Oliver was having another episode in the lobby. Jackson immediately pulled up the security camera feed on his computer, his heart pounding as he saw his son on the marble floor. He grabbed his suit jacket and headed for the door, but something on the screen made him pause. A woman was sitting near Oliver, but she wasn't crowding him or trying to force interaction. She was simply being present, doing something quiet with her hands. Jackson watched as Oliver's agitation visibly decreased. His son's rigid posture began to relax, and his repetitive rocking slowed to a gentle sway. The woman continued her quiet paper folding, and Jackson found himself holding his breath as Oliver actually looked at what she was making. In the lobby, Emma finished her second crane and placed it next to the first. She reached for a third piece of paper, this time choosing a soft blue color. As she began folding, she hummed very quietly, a simple melody that seemed to float in the air like a gentle breeze. Oliver lifted his head slightly, his eyes following Emma's careful movements. She was creating something beautiful and peaceful, and her presence felt safe. Unlike the other adults who seemed anxious and eager to fix him, this woman simply existed calmly in his space without demanding anything from him. When Emma finished the blue crane, Oliver surprised everyone by slowly extending one small hand toward it. Emma smiled softly and gently pushed the paper bird across the smooth floor until it reached his fingers. Oliver picked it up with careful reverence, examining the precise folds and delicate wings. The security guard stepped forward, but Emma raised her hand slightly, silently asking him to wait. She pulled out one more piece of paper and began another crane, this time in a warm yellow color. As she folded, she spoke for the first time, her voice barely above a whisper. "Birds are amazing," she said softly, not looking directly at Oliver but speaking to the space between them. "They can fly anywhere they want, whenever they need to find a peaceful place." Oliver nodded slightly, still holding the blue crane. His breathing had returned to normal, and the panicked expression had faded from his face. The gathered crowd began to disperse, sensing that the crisis had passed, though they remained curious about the gentle woman who had somehow worked this quiet magic. Jackson finally left his office, taking the elevator down to the lobby with his heart still racing. When the doors opened, he saw Oliver sitting calmly on the floor, examining paper cranes, while a woman in a simple navy dress sat nearby. She had dark brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. There was something about her presence that immediately put Jackson at ease. Emma looked up as footsteps approached, and her breath caught when she saw the tall man in the expensive suit walking toward them. She recognized Jackson Pierce from newspaper photos, though he looked younger and more vulnerable in person. His face showed a mixture of relief and amazement as he took in the peaceful scene. "Oliver," Jackson said gently, kneeling down near his son. "How are you feeling?" "Better, Dad," Oliver replied quietly, showing his father the delicate paper birds. "The crane lady made these for me. She didn't talk too much or touch me when I was feeling stormy inside." Jackson's eyes met Emma's, and she saw genuine gratitude in his expression. "Thank you," he said simply, but the words carried enormous weight. Emma began gathering her papers, feeling suddenly self-conscious under his intense gaze. "He just needed some quiet space," she said softly. "Sometimes that's all any of us need." As she stood to leave, Oliver looked up at her with clear, thoughtful eyes. "Will you make more cranes sometime?" he asked hopefully. Emma smiled warmly. "I make them every day at the library where I work. Children there love learning how to fold them." Jackson watched this gentle woman who had accomplished in minutes what teams of specialists had struggled with for months. As Emma picked up her satchel and prepared to rejoin the auction, he knew he couldn't let her simply disappear back into the crowd. "Wait," he called softly, standing as well. "I'd like to talk with you if you have a moment." Emma paused, looking between Jackson and Oliver with uncertainty. She had no idea that this simple act of kindness was about to change all their lives forever. The marble lobby continued to bustle with auction guests, but in their small corner near the elevators, 3 people stood at the beginning of something extraordinary. Oliver clutched his paper cranes, Jackson struggled to find adequate words for his gratitude, and Emma wondered what this powerful man could possibly want to discuss with a quiet librarian who simply understood that sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest changes. Hearts unveiled. Jackson gestured toward a quieter corner of the lobby, away from the bustling auction crowd. Emma followed hesitantly, still holding her satchel while Oliver walked between them, carefully cradling his paper cranes. The noise of the charity event seemed to fade as they found a seating area near the large windows overlooking the city. "Please sit," Jackson said, his voice gentler than Emma had expected from someone of his reputation. She perched on the edge of a leather chair while Oliver climbed onto the sofa beside his father, still examining his origami birds with fascination. Emma fidgeted with the strap of her satchel, unsure why the CEO of one of the city's most successful companies wanted to speak with her. She was just a librarian who happened to know how to fold paper and remain calm around overwhelmed children. "I need to ask you something," Jackson began, running a hand through his dark hair. "What you just did with Oliver, how did you know exactly what he needed?" Emma glanced at Oliver, who was now arranging his cranes in a small formation on the coffee table. "I work with children every day at the Central Library," she explained quietly. "You learn to read their signals, to understand when they need space versus when they need engagement. Oliver was overwhelmed by all the noise and activity. He needed someone to simply be present without adding to his stress." Jackson leaned forward, his business instincts telling him this woman possessed something rare and valuable. "Oliver has autism," he said directly. "We've worked with therapists, specialists, behavioral consultants. Nothing has been as effective as what you just accomplished in 10 minutes. "I didn't accomplish anything," Emma replied, shaking her head. "Oliver did all the work. I just gave him some quiet space to find his calm again." Oliver looked up from his cranes. "She made the stormy feeling go away without trying to fix me," he said matter-of-factly. "Most grown-ups want to make me different. She just let me be me until I felt better." Emma's heart clenched at the wisdom in this 8-year-old's words. She turned to Jackson, seeing the pain and exhaustion in his eyes that came from watching your child struggle and not knowing how to help. "Mr. Pierce," she began carefully, "Oliver doesn't need to be fixed. He just needs to be understood." Jackson studied her face, noting the genuine warmth in her expression and the way Oliver had naturally gravitated toward her calm presence. An idea was forming in his mind, one that felt both completely logical and utterly insane. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emma Hartwell. I've been the children's librarian at Central for 6 years. "Emma," Jackson repeated, testing how her name sounded. "I want to make you an offer. It might sound crazy, but please hear me out." Emma's eyebrows rose, and she glanced around the opulent lobby. "I'm listening. I travel frequently for business, and Oliver comes with me when school allows. The transitions are hard for him, new places, new routines. I've been looking for someone who could provide consistency and support during these times. Not a traditional nanny or therapist, just someone who understands him." Oliver perked up, arranging his cranes into a neat line. "Like a friend who knows about paper birds and quiet games?" "Exactly like that," Jackson said, smiling at his son before turning back to Emma. "I'm asking if you'd consider working with us. Part-time, flexible schedule, excellent compensation. You could even bring some of your library programs to Oliver when we're traveling." Emma blinked, certain she had misunderstood. "You're offering me a job, but you don't know anything about me. I could be terrible with children outside of a library setting. I've never been a nanny or worked for a private family." "You're right, I don't know your employment history or your credentials," Jackson admitted. "But I know you saw my son in distress and responded with exactly what he needed. You didn't try to analyze him or apply some technique you learned in a book. You just offered him kindness and space." Emma looked at Oliver, who was watching her hopefully. The idea was tempting but also terrifying. Her quiet, predictable life at the library was safe and comfortable. Working for Jackson Pierce would mean entering a world she knew nothing about. "I love my job at the library," she said slowly. "The children there need me too." "You wouldn't have to leave the library," Jackson said quickly. "This would be supplemental. Maybe 2 or 3 days a month when I have important business travel. Oliver could even visit the library sometimes if you think he'd enjoy it." Oliver's eyes lit up. "Could I really go to the library? I love books, especially ones with pictures of birds and airplanes." Emma found herself smiling. "We have an entire section devoted to aviation and ornithology. You'd love our picture books about different bird species from around the world." "See?" Jackson said, recognizing the connection forming between Emma and his son. "This could work beautifully." Emma took a deep breath, her practical nature warring with the unexpected pull she felt toward this unusual opportunity. "Can I think about it? This is all very sudden." "Of course," Jackson replied, though she could see the disappointment he was trying to hide. "Take all the time you need." Oliver carefully picked up one of his paper cranes and held it out to Emma. "This is for you," he said solemnly. "So you'll remember that some people just need quiet magic instead of loud fixing." Emma accepted the delicate crane, her heart melting at the child's thoughtful gesture. "Thank you, Oliver. This is the most beautiful gift anyone has ever given me." As they prepared to part ways, Jackson pulled out his business card and wrote something on the back. "My personal number," he explained, handing it to Emma. "Call me when you've decided. And Emma, thank you for showing me that sometimes the most profound help comes in the simplest forms." Emma walked home that evening with Oliver's paper crane carefully tucked in her purse and Jackson's business card in her hand. Her small apartment felt different somehow, as if the quiet encounter in the marble lobby had shifted something fundamental in her world. She sat at her kitchen table, unfolding the events of the day in her mind, like one of her origami creations. The way Oliver had responded to her presence, the gratitude in Jackson's eyes, the possibility of bringing her love of working with children into an entirely new context. 3 days later, Emma found herself dialing the number on Jackson's business card. When he answered on the second ring, she could hear the hope in his voice. "Mr. Pierce, this is Emma Hartwell. I've been thinking about your offer." "And?" Emma looked at the paper crane sitting on her bookshelf, catching the morning sunlight streaming through her window. "I'd like to try it. On a trial basis first, to see if I really can help Oliver the way you think I can." The relief in Jackson's voice was unmistakable. "That's wonderful news. When can we start?" As they discussed schedules and logistics, Emma felt a flutter of excitement mixed with nervousness. She had no idea that accepting this opportunity would lead to falling in love not just with a brilliant, sensitive child who saw the world differently, but with his father as well. Jackson Pierce had built his fortune on recognizing potential and taking calculated risks. But as he hung up the phone after speaking with Emma, he realized he had just made the best business decision of his life, even though it had nothing to do with business at all. In her quiet apartment, Emma began preparing for a new adventure that would teach her that sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with the smallest acts of kindness. And somewhere across the city, Oliver Pierce was carefully folding new paper cranes, eager to share more quiet magic with the gentlewoman who understood that being different wasn't something that needed to be fixed. The marble lobby, where they had first met, continued to welcome visitors each day, but it had become something more than just the entrance to a technology company. It had become the place where three hearts found each other through the simple power of presence, patience, and paper birds that symbolize the freedom to be exactly who you are. Their story was just beginning, built on a foundation of understanding that would prove stronger than any storm and more lasting than any conventional romance. Emma had answered Jackson's call, not knowing she was stepping into a love story that would redefine everything she thought she knew about family, belonging, and the extraordinary magic hidden within ordinary moments.